So today I'm going to tell you guys about the historic village of Agua Fria, which dates back to 1640. Now, if you're from Santa Fe, or if you visited Santa Fe enough times, then more than likely you've driven up and down Agua Fria Street, and more than likely you've seen this sign. And also a couple other signs like this, marking the historic village of Agua Fria with the year 1640. Like me, you've probably wondered exactly what this means. Well, I did some research and found out, so today I'm gonna break it down for you. First off, I want to start off by explaining the Royal Road, El Camino Real. So if you're familiar with Santa Fe and have driven up and down Agua Fria Street, then you've also seen these signs. They're all along Agua Fria from the beginning to the end. This is because Agua Fria Street runs along the old Camino Real. In essence, Agua Fria Street is the old Camino Real, that part of it anyway. The Camino Real was a road that connected the capital of New Spain in the south, Mexico City, to the capital in the north, Santa Fe. El Camino Real means the Royal Road, and it led to the royal city of Holy Faith, Santa Fe. So since Santa Fe, the capital in the north, was so far up north from Mexico City, they had to send supplies from Mexico City periodically. Armor, weapons, horses, slaves, The village of Agua Fria was built right on the Camino Real. So if you were traveling El Camino Real and you were coming into Santa Fe, you would have to pass through the village of Agua Fria. Today, the village of Agua Fria has been swallowed up by the fast-growing city in the mountains, Santa Fe. But back in those days, Agua Fria was its own village 5 miles south of Santa Fe. So this is the story of the village of Agua Fria. So in 1640, a conquistador by the name of Francisco de Madrid settled in a place along the Camino Real on the Santa Fe River, 5 miles south of the royal city of Holy Faith, Santa Fe. This place was called Catica by the natives, which translates to cold water in English and Agua Fria in Spanish. Now Francisco came to New Mexico in 1603 and ended up in Madrid mining lead and using the coal to smelt it, whatever that means. He finally settled down and started to farm the land called Agua Fria in 1640. Now recent archaeological evidence suggests at least a 7000 BCE date for hunter-gatherers in the area of Agua Fria. But you could probably almost say that about anywhere in this area at that time. Anyway, around 3000 to 3500 BCE, natives lived in this area in pit houses. Then in 1150 to 1400, there was a pueblo called the Pindi Pueblo on this site. So the natives and Spanish settlers had conflict at the time. The Spanish were trying to force the natives into turning into them, and the natives were trying to guard their way of life. So this led to the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, where a Native American from the Pueblo of Oqueawinge, San Juan, named Pope, gathered all the pueblos and made them unite into one united force, and they attacked the Spanish and drove them out of New Mexico. Now, if you want to learn more about the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, I've taught about it in the past, so scroll through my videos on my page and you'll find them and learn more. But over 400 Spaniards got killed during the Pueblo Revolt, and the remaining 2,000 that were settling in New Mexico that survived were driven out. They had to flee south back to modern-day El Paso. So after they defeated and kicked out the Spaniards, they burned the churches, desecrated their holy places, and they reclaimed the land of New Mexico. They held the land for 12 years until 1692. Don Diego de Vargas came back and retook New Mexico. Now this is known as the Reconquest of New Mexico, and it happened in 1692. If you want to learn more about this, I've also done videos about this in the past, so scroll through my page and you'll also find those. Anyway, so Don Diego de Vargas gathered his forces and he went north along the Rio Grande and he reconquered New Mexico. September 1692 was the official date that he entered Santa Fe and reconquered it officially. And after he reconquered New Mexico for the Kingdom of Spain, he became the governor of New Mexico, Governor Don Diego de Vargas. So in 1693, Captain Roque de Madrid, who later became a major, petitioned Don Diego de Vargas for a land grant. See, he fought for Don Diego de Vargas during the reconquest of New Mexico, and at this time, Don Diego de Vargas was giving land grants to his soldiers who were loyal to him. So he requested a land grant for Pueblo Quemado, later Agua Fria, for his service to the crown during the reconquest. In his petition, He stated that his parents and grandparents farmed the land prior to the Pueblo Revolt. So he was granted the land and then he resettled his grandfather Francisco's place. Agua Fria was identified by two groups. The area by the church was known as Ranchito de los Romeros, and the other one was in the area of the Tanque, or the watering hole, which is modern-day Agua Fria and Caja de Oro Road. And this area was Ranchito de los Lopez. Now, as these ranches grew, they became placitas. So they became placitas de los Romeros and placitas de los Lopez. And these were the village of Agua Fria. So the historic Santa Fe Foundation and an Agua Fria resident who's also a historian named William Mee put together a timeline of events based on archaeological evidence, documents, and other historical findings in the village of Agua Fria. And this is what they found out. So they put together this list of events that took place in chronological order. So I'm going to read them to you. So in 1776, Fray Francisco Atanasio Dominguez gave a census count to his church superiors listing Pueblo Quemado, or Agua Fria, with 57 families and 297 persons. This count was to plan new missions in the Diocese of Durango, Mexico. So from 1693 to 1776, that's less than 85 years, Agua Fria had already grown to 57 families. In 1822, a Mexican map first uses the name Agua Fria Village. In 1835, San Isidro Church was built and named after the patron saint of farmers. Before this, the people in Agua Fria had a strong Catholic faith but found it difficult to attend services at the parroquia in Santa Fe, later the St. Francis Cathedral. Don Jose Jacinto Gallegos raised the idea of building a church, went to his land with his neighbors, tossed his hat to the four winds, and built the church on the spot where it landed. Now this is my favorite. The most famous event in the village of Agua Fria took place August 3rd, 1837 against Governor Albino Perez. He was a governor who raised taxes, so there was a revolution against him at the time. Perez was unable to suppress the revolution. He fled south and was caught in the village of Agua Fria. They beheaded him, and his head was kicked down El Camino Real back to present-day Fort Marcy. Now, they have the inscribed rock at the palace of the governor's courtyard, and that used to be located where they beheaded him. Where they beheaded him was at Hickok and Agua Fria Street intersection. On August 16th, 1849, a U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel John M. Washington's expedition to Navajo country went through Agua Fria, and he noted this in his journal. In 1853, James Josiah Webb came in on the Santa Fe Trail, and in the summer of 1860, he witnessed a battle with Indians, and they drove about 100 horses, ponies, and mules across the Santa Fe River just below Agua Fria. In 1854, Agua Fria added the sheriff of Precinct 5, Precinto Número 5, as its law and order. In 1861, Captain Charles Probst from the Probst Remount Station and Inn near the Henry Lynch Road and Agua Fria Street intersection raised a company of volunteers from the Agua Fria village for the Union Army. In 1900, Jose Antonio Romero opened his general store and was listed as the Justice of the Peace. In 1909, a government survey was conducted by William Corbet to issue a U.S. patents to landholders. In 1914, a modern three-room schoolhouse was built with concrete foundations, replacing the two one-room schools built in the 1890s. And in 1934, adobes were made for the Agua Fria Elementary School. Fun fact, I went to that school in 5th and 6th grade. In 1945, the city of Santa Fe raised its reservoirs and illegally cut off the acequias to Agua Fria, effectively destroying the ability of residents to farm. And that's where the story ends. Now, I wish I could give you more, but that's literally where the story ends. So that's the story of the historic village of Agua Fria. I hope you learned something new. Thank you for watching. This is Tragedy. I'm out.